Can you? No. All right. Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to the series premiere of Little Victories, a show about improving the social condition here on the Monterey Peninsula. My name is Turtle. I am actually founder and CEO of Humble Beginnings and Medicine Wheels, a bike program where I give bikes away to the disenfranchised. We're going to talk about different issues here on the peninsula, whether they regard local resources, client interviews with actual clients here on the peninsula, and information on how to improve the social condition for all, whether it's humanitarian, whether it's environmental. Improving the social condition is what this show is all about. Essentially, every day our duty as human beings is to help other human beings, and that's the primary focus of my foundation, Medicine Wheels, and all of the resources that you'll hear about on this show, all available here on the Monterey Peninsula. So it's going to be fun. This is a great opportunity to reach out to the world and spread the message that we have here on the peninsula, which is basically, we're all human beings, and we all should do what we can to make each other's lives better. My co-host today is Erin Golightman, I call her. We'll go into that name later. It's definitely apropos though. We have a couple of guests today. We're going to have Pastor Jim from Pastor Word Ministries here. We also have Michael Casey from the Bridge program here in Pacific Grove, a substance abuse recovery faith-based program that we have. That is an amazing program, and in future shows we'll basically have an interview with every resource that is here on the peninsula that wants to talk about their program and how they've affected the social condition here in Monterey. One of the other interviews that we'll be doing and talking with people is an actual corporate employee who works for some sort of corporation or maybe a big business, and how they deal with my client base. Primarily my client base is anywhere from domestic violence survivors to substance abuse recovery, the homeless or residentially challenged, I like to say, and legally challenged, parolees and probationers. Anybody that's disenfranchised is essentially, by definition, denied the things that most people have available to them for whatever reasons, whether it's economical, social, or environmental. Those are the people that I deal with every day, and I've been doing this for going on 6 years now, and I started in Salinas, California in 2012. Basically went out to Chinatown and saw what was happening to my community and was just pretty appalled at what was going on, and I thought, okay, so let's find a solution. My father always said, life is full of problems, just find the solutions, and that's going to get you down the road. So I looked at the problem and I tried to do some things in Salinas, and it was just impossible. I mean, unfortunately, the problem there is so out of hand with the drugs and gangs and other elements that are hard to control that we ended up, moving out here to Monterey and focusing on the downtown Monterey area. When I came over here, I noticed one significant difference in Monterey was that the law enforcement, the way that they dealt with the homeless community was completely, atypical. It wasn't, lock them up, throw away the key, lock them up, put them in a revolving circle. It was, what can we do to help you to, improve your social condition and improve your life? And they actually did amazing things and do amazing things for clients, whether it's referring them to a substance abuse program like the Bridge and Michael's program, or the Genesis House, or any of the other substance abuse recovery programs we have around the peninsula. I've watched them, I've had them call me and say, hey, look, so-and-so is being arrested. We can't take their backpack or their property down to the county jail. Can you, help us out, or can you help them out? They want you to come and get it. And absolutely, because that's their life. That backpack is everything. It may have personal family photos that they, can't replace. It may have a journal, a laptop, or an iPad, believe it or not, quite a few of my clients do have technology available to them, and if they lose that and it gets left behind, they've lost everything that they have, and they don't have that much to start with. Obviously, if they're out on the streets, but we had to show that. I wanted to show people around the world and around the country that, look, this is the way it should be. Because again, we're all human beings. Why would we not take care of each other, right? I mean, you're from a younger generation. Erin actually has an amazing story, and I want to kind of talk about this a little bit because Erin and I met a few weeks ago. There's obviously some candles here on the desk. They're from an amazing candle company down here on Cannery Row. And I went in to talk about some set design stuff, and we started a conversation, and I told her what I did and what the show is going to be about, and, well, you can tell the rest of the story.
Well, the first thing that I brought up was when I first originally moved here to Monterey, I was living in a tent because I didn't have a place to stay. I just came down here to go to school, and just didn't have a place to stay, but I wanted to be here. I wanted to be able to start the semester and go to school and, get my life started. I hadn't really done much before. I'd been out of high school, and so I moved down here and got financial aid, thankfully, and was able to, stay at Veterans Memorial Park, and it was awesome. Yeah. I loved it. It was.
And that's the free thinker.
Being able to just be in a tent.
Yeah, that's the free thinker that I think, we all are, even, from a substance abuse program standpoint, we think differently than other people, because most people think in a linear perspective, birth to death, and, education, career, family, retirement, and death. Whereas free thinkers and people like you who are saying, hey, look, you know what, I'm going to college no matter what. I don't have a place to go. I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and get in my car and get a tent, and I'm going to do it because I want to improve my social condition and willing to make that sacrifice. Those showers are, we talked about this a couple of days ago, they're warm,
iffy.
But they're iffy at best.
It depends on what time you go.
Exactly, so.
You can't control it.
Yeah, so you were willing to give up these creature comforts, let's call them, that most people aren't willing to in order to further your career and your education.
And it made me appreciate it that much more as well.
So that's why she's my co-host. Primarily why she's my co-host, because she gets it. She has that experience. She's obviously a different generation than I am, and that's, again, by design, because I believe the 20-somethings are the generation that gets it. They have figured it out that if we don't do something about the environmental condition, the social condition, the humanitarian condition, guess what? What are my kids going to have? What are my grandkids going to have? Probably not a whole lot of anything, unfortunately, if we continue down that path. So I see this paradigm shift in my own experiences on the streets, talking with 20-somethings, whether it's on the bus, just chatting with the 20-something about, what are you going to school for? What's your major? And it seems to be about 90% now, seems to be, environmental sciences, marine sciences,
exactly.
Anything that has to do with, again, improving that social condition. So thank goodness we have that shift in thinking, and there's not, the road isn't continuing down where we're just raping Mother Earth and tearing this place up and just saying, you know what, let somebody else worry about it. I want it now. And that's a huge thing. So she's obviously going to, ask questions that I don't think about, and I'm going to ask questions that she probably doesn't think about. So that's why I think that she's going to be a great fit for the show. And again, this whole show is about awareness. Awareness to the people around us, awareness to their condition, awareness to how they got there, because most people think that when you see a homeless person or a disenfranchised individual, we always have a tendency to think the worst, and they're an addict, they're lazy, they don't want to work, and that's not the case. It can be financial catastrophe, it can be medical catastrophe. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons and things that can cause a person to become, again, residentially challenged. And we're going to tell those stories over the next, few months. We're going to tell stories, and we're going to actually show you these faces and let you hear from them personally how they got where they're at. Where did they come from, and where are they going? What are they doing to improve that? That's, something that people need to know. We're going to talk about how to, do things that are unconventional in regards to helping another individual, whether it's going to a restaurant and taking your to-go tray and actually, instead of leaving it behind, take it, go outside, walk to the nearest garbage can, and put that tray on top of a garbage can. Most people that I tell that to go, I never thought about that. Well, that accomplishes two things, right? Gives them food. We eliminate a little bit of that food waste, and it gives them value. I mean, because now you're not digging in the garbage can anymore for food. And if that's just enough to get a person to stand there and go, God, somebody cares about me. They actually cared enough to put that on top of the garbage can for me. Why wouldn't you know what? Tomorrow I think I'm going to go look for a job. Even if it's one person, just one, change in thinking, that's enough. That's we're doing our job, and that's the purpose of this show. We'll have somebody from the local law enforcement agencies, whether it's MPD or PGPD or Seaside, or even the local security guards downtown on Alvarado Street. You do an amazing job. Again, the law enforcement aspect of this is and you've seen it. They don't go out harassing people, but there are people that come in. We have travelers. We'll talk about the different types of clients that are homeless, whether they're, a dirty kid, which is a 20-something who is, just kind of checked out. We'll talk about travelers and the different types of travelers there are, because sometimes it's a international traveler, but you can't really tell based on apparel, or with attire. And other times they're travelers from Santa Cruz to LA or from Washington to whatever, you know a few, I'm sure, that you've met through the store, and they come in, and those are the ones that seem to be making it tough sometimes for the locals. But they lovingly, some refer to themselves as the home bums, because they're the ones that are here every single day and have to endure whatever challenges that they have, based on a few individuals who just come through the town, burn it down, and then leave. And all of these things that I'm talking about, we'll go much more into depth throughout the season about how these factors affect the homeless population. And sometimes it's mental illness, sometimes it's substance abuse, other times, like I said, medical or financial catastrophes. But the substance abuse issue is obviously one of the things that's dear to you, because you have this amazing program. And we'll have a client on. Her name is Seal. In the next couple of weeks, she's going to come on and tell us her story. And really looking forward to that. I've known Seal for about 4 years now, and she is currently doing very well in Mike's program. And we're looking forward to seeing her and talking with her about her recovery and what her plans are for the future. Erin, you got anything you want to add into that, or
No, I think you
covered it? I imagine that. One of the other aspects of environmental social condition improvement is a sustainable farming project that we're working on here at Wave Street Studios, which reminds me, we're broadcasting live from Wave Street Studios here in Monterey, California. And we are on Cannery Row between the aquarium and Bluefin Billiards, right down the bike path. It's an amazing facility. This is an amazing opportunity for me. The owner, Rhett Smith, has done an amazing job here, and they are basically producing a channel that is a wellness channel, a channel that basically shows you the best day of your life in wellness from breakfast to bedtime. With well over 100 hours of programming already, we've got yoga classes. So you start the day with a yoga class, then you go and you do a vegetarian cooking show and make some breakfast, and then maybe a bar class in the afternoon when you have a little bit of chance, and then at night check out the Qigong and then make some dinner from another vegetarian cooking class. It's all right there. So this show is obviously in that line, not so much in actual wellness, but physical wellness, but in spiritual wellness, because by doing the things, by taking care of each other as human beings, it really, keeps us spiritually balanced. Because when we're in that angry mode, when we're, just kind of in our own world, one of what I call the sheeple, when you're so consumed by life's daily tasks, then we kind of lose connection with the source, creator, and with people. I mean, you've seen it. We've seen it on buses where people are not even talking to each other. They're just in their devices, especially your generation. You guys are so...
We really like to just stick to our headphones and our phones.
Yeah, but you know what?
Just very focused.
Even that's changing now.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm seeing more dialogue amongst
people recognize it as an issue, and they're trying to change it, just like everything else. Yeah.
Well, that's, again, a little victory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's hence the name of the show. Showing people how to do little things, because, we don't have to do huge, monumental, donations, or, go out and spend 8 hours volunteering a week in order to have an impact on somebody's life. There are several resources that are in development, whether it's housing with Jill Allen out at Dorothy's Kitchen in Salinas, where, they've got over 300 beds available, but they're still, as of last March when I was there and we were talking about it, they were 18, 24 months away. So now, they're still 6 months to a year today from that. Well, my problem with that is that, what about my client now who's sitting on the street corner, who needs something, who needs a Cliff Bar, who needs a banana now, he's hungry now? That's where Humble Beginnings and being the conduit between the client, like say my good friend Haas here, or and the resource that we have available, which is where somebody like Mike comes into play. These things, these connections are what Humble Beginnings is all about. We try to facilitate travelers who come into town who have no idea, how to get access to a tent or a sleeping bag. So what do they usually do? They resort to some sort of property crime, whether it's shoplifting or, robbing a house or whatever, to get the money to get that tent or that sleeping bag. And then we, have to pay through shrinkage as taxpayers for that material, those products that are stolen from a store. Worst case scenario is we end up putting them in the county jail. And then we pay $1,100 a day as taxpayers to house them in the county jail for stealing in order to get something that everybody should just have anyways. If I was out there, I sure as heck want a sleeping bag, or a tent to have. And so if we take a proactive approach, if we connect them with those resources that we have available here, whether it's St. Vincent de Paul and Pacific Grove, who gives a tent and a sleeping bag with any identification once a year to a client, to Pastor Word Ministries and the Breakfast in the Park program, which Pastor Jim Nelson was a guest on the show I did last week, and we discussed the fact that they give away a hot breakfast every morning. They give away a sack lunch. They provide tents, tarps, sleeping bags, camping stoves, AAA batteries, things that a person would need to get through a week out there on the streets. Again, proactive approach is what my foundation is about, and what we all need to start thinking about. Why are we waiting until that person's in jail? Why are we waiting till they're in such a bad place that there's no bringing them back? And that was, I have a son. I have a 29-year-old son, and I would only hope and pray that if he was in that position, that somebody would help him. So that's my primary motivation for doing what I do. Aaron, as I mentioned, we talked about the tent, to go to school thing. What possessed you even in the beginning to even think about doing something like that?
I don't know. I just think I wanted to experience it. I wanted to understand, that kind of way of life, and get a feel for not having as much as I'd had, maybe growing up and stuff, and just being able to understand people more. You know, I think that's what life's all about, is just constantly trying to, you know, relate to people and just learn, you know, about yourself by learning how you can relate with other people, you know, and so I wanted to be able to do that, and that's why, you know,
It
and
worked.
I thought it was great, yeah.
It's worked, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We have a tendency as again, as you know, human beings socially conditioned to just do it, to live the American dream and have the McMansion and the Mercedes and all that. We're taught that that's where happiness comes from. I can tell you right now, folks, I sold my car in 2011, reduced my carbon footprint, bus and bike everywhere, and started my path towards minimalism 5 years ago. And I can tell you honestly today, I've never had so little in my life, yet had so much. Because the joy that I get. We had an event last night here at Wave Street Studios, and after the event there was actually some food left over, quite a bit from an amazing local catering company. And Rhett says, we need to do something with this. And I was like, let's go give it away to the people on the streets, man. Let's go give it to my clients. And so sure enough, his son Foster and I went down at about 11:30 last night, and Haas actually helped out carrying some stuff. We went down and jumped a MST bus down to the Transit Plaza, and then walked up to Denny's on Munris. I probably should have said an undisclosed location. But anyways, we set up a buffet, and it was amazing. 4 cheese raviolis. We had quinoa and these primavera vegetables, and just all this amazing food. And here it is, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we had people coming up and just having something to eat. And the joy that you get from that. I'm working on an hour and a half sleep, by the way, last night, folks. I was actually up all night, with my people, like my family, this community, this whole community, whether you're disenfranchised or not, you're all my family. And I've known Haas for several years, and I envy him. And people say, how do you envy a guy? This guy's got no house. He's got a degree of freedom that most of us only wish we could have. The ability to just dance in the middle of the plaza, in all his amazing glory, with his great pumps and his great, smile, and just being joyful without any worries in the world. No car payments, no house payments. And so I made that statement to her. I says, I envy you, because you don't have to live the facade. You get to be you every day, and you get to just do what you want. And it's not for everybody, obviously, but at the same time, that joy is the source. It's the source of everything, happiness in our lives. And man, oh man, you wouldn't think it's possible. And he chuckles because he knows it's true. And it was just, one of those moments for me when I first saw him dancing in the plaza downtown. And it was like, oh God, it probably was 2 o'clock in the morning, yeah. And I see this guy dancing around with this streamer, and the music's playing, and I can't hear any music though. It's just, I was too far away, and then I got closer and closer and started hearing music, because at first I was just dancing with the air, I'm like, oh, another one of those high guys. Okay, let me go engage and see what I can do to help him, and see if we can get him on a path or what he needs. And then we started talking, and he was just being joyful, man. He was just enjoying his life and enjoying that time, the peace and quiet of being there in this tourist attraction that's always filled with people. At 1 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody around, and you can just do what you want. And I was just like, God, I want some of that.
Yeah.
I want that ability to just check out and just go and be me for a minute. Not have to live the facade of societal conditioning, let's call it. And we'll talk with Haas another time. We're going to do an interview, and he's the voice of the streets, as I said, so he'll be a regular on our show and getting us information about what's going on out there. So the other, basically, with spiritual health comes physical health. So we're going to have a yoga snack with a young lady, Becca Cordell, who is a yoga instructor, and she'll be doing a 10-minute yoga snack about basically getting centered. If a guy is in a position where he's not feeling well, or upset, we can give him coping skills, a quick little way of getting centered and, praying and taking some deep breaths. Because again, proactive, right? That's the key, is that why wait until they're melted down and in Garden Pavilion? Why not do something prior to that? And say, hey, look, if you start feeling yourself going down that path, here's a tool, here's the toolbox, feel free to use it. And, this medium in and of itself, the internet and YouTube and, Wave Street Live, this is probably 98% of my client base is on the way to watch TV. And it's the wave of the future. We know that. It's changing. Cable's not as powerful as it used to be. Everything's available on the internet. So it gives them the ability to watch this program and learn about yoga, man. And you're going to participate, right?
I know. Yes,
I am
of course.
so not, just so we're clear, I will not ever be in a yoga class. I will stand by, but I will not do it. Trust me, you do not want to see me in yoga clothes. It's not good. But, the other part of my personal involvement in this social conditioning improvement is Medicine Wheels. Medicine Wheels is a bike program that I actually started in August with Pass the Word Ministries. And what we did was I went down to just look at the resource, just take a look at what they were about. I heard about the breakfast in the park. I heard about, the lunch and stuff. So I thought, okay, let me go and see what this resource is about so I can refer. Which, real quick, I mean, that's the one thing that I had to do that took so long, almost 5 years, was the actual research into local resources. Going into every program, Victory Mission, going in and embedding myself for 9 days in their program as a client, unbeknownst to anybody, here I am just showing up at the door going, hey, I want to be can I get in? And understanding what they were going through and what the needs were, to iHelp, which is an amazing program. iHelp basically uses 30 different churches here on the peninsula, and they take you to a different church every night. They pick you up at a specified pickup point, which is at the Naval Postgraduate School at 4:45 every afternoon, and then they take you out. You go to a church, you have an amazing hot home-cooked meal, you spend the night, you watch some movies, you get some good rest, you're safe and warm. The next morning you get up and you clean the church, and that's the trade-off, is basically that, for you being able to stay there, you do a couple of little chores and clean the church, and everybody wins. And that resource I actually was embedded in for a couple of weeks because I couldn't get away from there because of the stories. That's where I really started learning the stories about my client base, where I had time to sit for hours and listen to their story and have, people tell me, yeah, I went through a really messy divorce. I'd never had a drinking problem. All of a sudden I fell into a bottle, was basically, in a bad way for a couple of years and lost everything. And then now I'm 4 years in recovery and trying to get back on my feet, and it's just a really hard thing to do when you lost everything. And Mike, you've seen, the end result of obviously the substance abuse. So, when you started this, I don't know exactly, when did you start the Bridge program?
11 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. We started in Seaside, and we were in Seaside for the first almost 2 years, and outgrew our location and then moved to Pacific Grove. So we've been serving the community for about 11 years now.
Wow, nice. So what was the motivating factor behind starting this program?
So we moved to the peninsula. I went through a divorce because of my addiction, and my wife moved here with my 3 children, and the addiction didn't stop. It continued for me, and ended up moving here to try to get away from that. Was a firefighter paramedic.
Wow.
Worked at 2 different fire departments in the ambulance service here on the peninsula. Went to work every day, drove ambulances, fire trucks, but I used heroin every day.
Wow.
So from the outside, things looked good. Good job, wife, kids. I remarried before coming here. But things looked good. My wife had a job, I had a job. I had 3 jobs, and things looked really good. But on the inside, I was going to Chinatown
Right.
during the day.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing for me, I would go to Chinatown and I would, score
Right.
and hang out in Chinatown for a while, shoot up, and then I would leave and go to work, and then I would respond to an overdose in Chinatown. And my fear was that somebody would recognize me, so I really try not to make eye contact with
Wow.
anybody.
Right.
When I was, at an overdose at Dorothy's Place, or when the Copacabana was opened down there,
Mhm.
or Victory Mission.
Right.
So for me, it was an interesting aspect, and transporting these people to the emergency room, being around doctors and nurses
Right.
in the emergency room setting, and then not having anybody really know what's going on with me.
Right. Do you mind me asking, what started you using heroin? Was it the typical pain med, big
No, my
pharma
dad
thing,
was
or-
addicted to heroin,
Mhm.
and my grandma wanted me to go help him get off of heroin.
Mhm.
So he told me in order to help him get off, I should know what he's going through. So he shot me up for my first time, and a month later, when I attempted to stop, I realized then what an addiction was.
Right.
So I stayed with him, and then finally broke away after a year, and tried to start my life. I was 22 at the time, and like I said, went to the fire academy, got married, went to school to become a paramedic, and just kept that addiction going.
Right.
Whether it was pain medication or heroin, it was just
So how many years did you use total?
20 years.
Wow. Jeez, that's a huge chunk
So
of
at
your life.
40 years old, I found myself homeless, living in my car, separated from my wife and my children, doing odd jobs, stealing,
Sure. All the scenarios I
Yeah.
basically talked about earlier.
dumpster diving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the typical addict story. It's always this progression of just bad choices. Life is about just making good choices. I teach my clients all the time. One of my favorite tools to use is the good choice, bad choice metaphor, which is essentially that in life we have an opportunity. We have a good choice and a bad choice. If we make a good choice, then guess what? The next time you have a decision to make, it's good choice, bad choice. And then the next time you make another good choice, guess what? It's good choice, bad choice. Great thing. The only problem is it works in reverse.
Mhm.
So once we start making that first bad choice to go help, the heroin addict family member, then you made the second bad choice, which was to say, oh, sure, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. I have to experience it, and then that leads to the progression where you end up again homeless and
Exactly.
divorced, and everything just kind of happens that way. So essentially, the bottom line is we just have to make good choices in life. It all starts with something as simple as that. The choice to go into recovery, the choice to not go out with your friends on a Thursday night and go and have a few beers knowing that you got to work in the morning,
Mhm.
because that could lead to jail, drunk driving, blah, blah, blah. Homeless, it's just a simple matter of just making good choices, right? You made a great choice to come out and, live in a tent. And look at you now. Now you're the co-host of a talk show. Imagine that. No one saw that one coming.
I definitely did.
Who do you serve?
So we serve a number of people from a lot of different areas. We get people coming out of prison after serving a prison term. They're like, I don't want to go back to doing the thing that I've always done. We have people that are referred from probation, from parole, social workers. In our program now we have moms, we have mothers with children that are separated from their children. We have dads with children. We have professionals. We have people that have come from the streets. So the addict is everybody. It's your mom, it's your dad, it's your uncle, it's your aunt, it's your next door neighbor, it's the guy at the grocery store.
Right.
There is no shortage of need on the peninsula for bed space for
Yeah.
people with addiction. So what we say is, people say, well, what do I have to do to get into the program? We say all you have to do is have a desire to change, and
Right.
that's it.
Sure.
So, and give up a year of your life to do something different.
Right. Yeah. So what exactly is the format of your program? Say I'm a client and I come in and I say, okay, I'm ready to go into recovery. What's the first part of
So
program?
first, there's some things we explain. It's obviously drug-free, it's tobacco-free, it's a faith-based program because we believe that, or I believe that, we have to address all the aspects, spiritual, physical, and find out what got you
Yeah.
to where you were at. So it's a year-long residential program where you come into the program, and most people have zero resources when they come in, and that's okay.
Right.
That doesn't prevent anybody from coming in. You know, I went to, as a firefighter paramedic, I had really good insurance,
Right.
so I could go to the Beacon House,
Right.
$30,000 for 28 days. I
Wow.
could go to the recovery center at Community Hospital for $950 a day. I can go to the camp in Santa Cruz at $2,500 a day. But when I ran out of the resources, it was like,
You're on your own.
now what do I do? So we service people that have no more resources.
So was that the primary impetus for you started doing this program in that, kind of business model where you don't require, that
Yeah, because
obvious-
my last program I ended up in was Victory Outreach in Salinas. And I mean, I went from my van to the program and they didn't ask me for anything. Had they asked me for something, I would have been able to provide it and I would have stayed on the streets longer and I would have ended up probably dying in my addiction.
Sure.
So we don't want anything financial to ever prevent somebody from making a right choice.
Right.
So another thing that we address is we have Second Chance Thrift Store here in Pacific Grove
Right.
and in Monterey.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clients have never worked
Right.
a legitimate job. They, have
Sure.
worked under the table,
Right.
or they like sold drugs, or they just bounced around. So you learn how to work,
Yeah.
learn how
Which-
to be responsible. You
Since
learn
you
how to
mentioned Second
you know,
Chance, this wonderful set piece is actually from Second Chance down in Pacific Grove. It's located on Lighthouse Avenue, correct? Is it Lighthouse?
Yes.
Avenue? What's the address?
105 Central.
Okay, 105 Central, right off of.
And
It's where the
so we-
Lighthouse and Central Lighthouse kind of
Right
goes off
across
left
from
and
Nob Hill,
changes
yes.
Right across from Nob Hill.
So we give our clients job skills.
Right.
Like I said, we have the 2 thrift stores. We also have a restaurant that we service at a church in Monterey at Calvary Chapel, where we operate a culinary program to teach people how to cook.
Right.
And so we just try to provide as many opportunities as we can for people to. And then you have the whole dichotomy of 20 men living in a house together,
Right.
where they learn the dynamics of getting along.
Sure.
I tell them it's like being put into a rock tumbler. At the end of that year, you're going to come out a nice, polished, hopefully gemstone.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Well, I do know some of your clients who are successes, and obviously, substance abuse recovery isn't perfect. It doesn't have 100% success rate. So I've unfortunately usually it's a myriad of 4 or 5 different programs, like you said. You kind of go through that.
I would say the average person is probably 3 to 5 programs
Wow.
before they finally get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it usually takes some sort of major life-changing event, whether it's a drunk driving accident or something like that, that really creates that shift. Would you say?
It does. For
Success?
me, it was I developed a flesh-eating bacteria from using heroin.
Wow.
Suffered a stroke. Woke up from that and was told I would never walk again, never drive again, never work again. So it was like, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things
you
Have
have
you
got
made a
my
change?
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say Creator will slap you on the wrist, and every now and then he's going to go ahead and whack you a really good one
Yeah,
once you figure it
and
out.
so coming out of that, it was like, okay, I don't want to see anybody else go through this. Of
Right.
what my family went through, my children, my wife, the people that I was around, what the devastation that I caused. So could I prevent that from happening to another family? So that's what drove us to open a house. And you have to realize Pacific Grove, California is America's last hometown.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you come into Pacific Grove and you rent one of the biggest houses in the city and you start putting people that are coming out of jail and prison into that house, it kind of creates a stir in the community.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Right.
So
So what was the reception in the beginning then? Was it really
it was
cool and
not,
sure?
there were people calling the city complaining that there's drug addicts living in, the house was called the Gatehouse, living in the old Gatehouse, and there was nothing people could do initially because you can have 6 people living in a residence legally.
Right.
The problem came about a year when we decided we wanted to expand to 12 residents. We had to have a public hearing.
Right.
And by that time, we'd embedded ourselves in the community and started doing community service. So we're very embedded in the community.
Right.
You know, like yesterday, we served at the Feast of the Lanterns, the Feast of Flavors, and
Oh,
then
nice.
tomorrow we do the setup and for the Feast of Lanterns, and then we do the tear down on Saturday night. And so we believe that by getting our residents involved in the community, it serves them.
Right.
Because most people today don't get involved in their community.
Right.
They don't even know their next door neighbor.
Yeah.
Right.
So they know the mayor, and they know the police officers, and they know Mo Amar from the Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
And it makes them feel good to, hey, I came out of prison, now I'm in this community, I'm serving the community. People stop me and thank me. You know, the mayor says hi. You know, we've had police officers stop by the house before and just hang out with the guys, and they're like,
Wow. Again, there's that
What's going on here?
Yeah, and again, that atypical law enforcement.
no, but in Pacific
Yeah.
Grove and in Monterey, the law enforcement really try to understand the community, and they try to understand what's going on. And I very often get calls from police officers saying, I have this guy that I see all the time, or this girl I see all the time, or we get calls from Community Hospital of the Monterey Peninsula that are involved in these programs with the law enforcement.
Right.
And so we often get calls from the hospital to go up and interview people, whether they're in the garden pavilion or whether they're on the, just a regular bed,
Right.
and try to provide resources for them,
Right. Yeah.
whether it's closed at Second Chance or an opportunity to get into a bed.
Right. Well, that's, a great job you guys are doing over there. Again, I've gone to the Monterey store a couple of 2-3 times, and, Stafford, which is all your client base, is just amazingly, well-trained. You guys, do a great job and have great stuff there. And I'm assuming that's what finances the majority of the program?
That
as far
finance
as-
is a part of it, yeah. I mean, addiction recovery is a very expensive, thing.
Sure.
Just the housing and just everything that takes to. We have a total of 34 residents in different phases of the program. So to house 34 people is costly. So that's one of the ways that we offset it, because we're a faith-based program.
Mhm.
We're not eligible for most state or federal funding, which is okay. So we're operate primarily by private donation
Right.
and foundations and things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those kind of frustrating ones where you kind of go, what do you mean just because obviously I'm Native American. I practice my Native American spiritual belief system. I was raised Christian and did accept, the whole doctrines and covenants of Christianity. But, I don't know, what about you? How was your
I
religious?
was raised in an LDS family.
Wow,
You know,
really?
and I was Mormon my entire life.
Right.
So up until I was 16, I think, and that's when I was like wanting a little bit more than just. But I still very much go by the just basic Christian values that we
Right.
had.
Sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, for me, again, as a Native American, and practicing my Native American spiritual belief system, it helped me to eliminate some of the walls that are out there. We've had this discussion before about how, a lot of my client base, because they're beaten down and tired, and the one I love hearing is, what's Jesus Christ done for me lately? Look at me, I'm on the streets and blah, blah. It's like, look, I'm not here as a representative of any spiritual belief system. I'm here as a human being who believes in taking care of Mother Earth, who believes in taking care of all the living things, 2-legged, 4-legged, winged ones, those that swim in the sea, and believing that something bigger than me created all of this. That's it. Simple, my heritage, and what the best byproduct of that belief, having this belief system, is that I can reach people that normally will build a wall and absolutely just shut me down as soon as, I'm sure you've seen it, where you've had a client come in and say, you talk about the program and say, okay, we're a faith-based program, we're Christian, and I'm sure you've had guys just go, I'm out, right? Just based on that.
But we are a faith-based program, but you don't have to have any faith to come in.
Yeah.
You will be
Awesome.
exposed to it, and then
Right.
it's your right to choose whether you want to accept it or not. So
Right.
Exactly.
so all I'm doing is taking things that I think have worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody says, well, if I was doing this, I would do it this way.
Right.
So when I started the program, the bridge, it was like, okay, so I'm going to use all the things that I think helped me, and see if they'll work for anybody else.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of ways of skinning a cat.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, this is just my particular way, and if it doesn't work for you, there are a lot of other places. But if it does, you know, if people want to embrace trying to figure out what got them to where they're at,
Right.
you know, because it may be, like you said, economic. It may be, maybe you were molested, maybe you were abused, maybe you were beaten, maybe all the above, and
Right.
something got you there, and you got to figure that out so that you can correct it, so that
Yeah.
you don't keep doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, trigger events are very, very, you know, unique to the individual, and it can be something for one person that we would go, how did that
Yeah,
just started on the road to, you know, like the one heroin, you know, story that you were telling about yourself reminded me of the whole thing where a majority of my heroin addict client base are all from using prescription medications.
Mhm.
You know, it's not the typical going down to the street corner like back in the 60s where, you know, you had to go down and go to Chinatown and get your dope, you know. I mean, you just had to look at mom or dad's, you know, medicine chest or talk to a friend, and, you know, OxyContin and all that just started this whole epidemic that we have today, which we'll obviously address more in future shows and go in depth. Let me clarify one thing real quick too. This show today is basically just an introduction to what we'll be talking about and what we'll be doing in the future on the show. Your local resource is, you know, I picked you guys for a reason because I've seen the good work that you guys have done in the community, and I met Michelle about 4 or 5 years ago at Lovers Point one day just cycling, and I was really curious about, you know, what is this new bridge program? Because, you know, again, Beacon House had been around since I was a kid back, you know, for decades, and that's the only real recovery center I knew about, substance recovery center I knew about here on the peninsula. And then Genesis House was before you guys,
Mhm.
correct? They've been around a little bit longer, and we'll be talking with Marta from Genesis House actually next week on the show then. But I don't really understand this whole thing about, you know, when a person goes into, you know, their addiction and it's, you know, prescription medication, for example. I never understood how that happened. I always thought it had to be something traumatic, like you said, some sort of abuse, failure, you know, failed marriage, whatever. I don't know. I've only had one of those, so I am human. Not good at it, so I just want to try that one again. But you know, it's a huge problem. This prescription medication addiction issue. I don't know, how big a percentage would you say your client base is coming out of that kind of situation?
Probably 2/3 of the young guys that we, are women that we work with, whether it was an injury from sports or a surgery. And what you notice is that when you're recovering from your injury and there's all these problems going around, and, you know, you're late on your bills, your kids are arguing, you know, and you take a pill, you feel like this all goes away.
Right.
So then you start to realize, hey,
It's the
there's a
comfort zone.
connection there. You know,
Yeah.
it makes it all go away. But then you start changing your body chemistry, and then when you stop, you have all that stuff, and then you have the withdrawals, and it's just a crazy thing to go through. And so it's just easier just to continue doing that.
Right. Well, thank God you guys are around, because they said programs like yours are what make my job a little bit easier. And it's always nice to see that successful client come back. You know, I've done things as simple as just take somebody down to MPC and register them, you know, for school. I had a 20-something who basically wanted to go back to college, had no idea how to get there. Came from an abusive family, alcohol, drugs, a lot of the, you know, her life, and didn't want to be that. And so, you know, walked her down to MPC and got her registered. And then last month I got an email from her saying, hey, I'm graduating. Are you coming to my graduation? 2.5 years later. That's not a little victory, that's a big one. You just empowered a person with education and a weapon that no one can ever steal from them. So, you know, I applaud her for her success, and she knows who she is. I promised her I wouldn't mention her name because she's kind of likes to be under the radar, but she's got her own place now. She was homeless, she was living on the streets. She has her own place, she's got a great job, new car. I mean, it's like, you know, it's success is out there. The thing is, we just have to provide those tools, right, Rev?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I.
Because life is what, that 86,400 seconds every day? All you have is the opportunity to go left, right, up, down, straight, or back. And that's, you know, you made a decision, you made a bad choice. How do you refocus? How do you regroup? All you have is the now. All you have is right here. This is it.
Yeah.
And when you think of that, there is no yesterday, there is no tomorrow. All you have is the ability to make those choices today, to make the decisions right now. Because if you're not living here, then you're living somewhere where you can't be, ever. You can't be in the past.
Right.
You can't be in the future. You might be able to think in the future or think in the past, but you're not there. You can't do it. You can't be there.
Be in the presence, right? We talk about that. Again, Aaron and I have had some pretty good conversations, and it's always kind of nice to talk to a different generation and get their perspective, which is why, again, like I said, she's the co-host, because at some point she's gonna ask some questions that I don't, you know, think about. And so that being said, you know, living in the present is really, really important. You know, we have a tendency to worry about the past, hold on to it, compartmentalize it, hold on to it, take it into our addiction sometimes, or in our, whatever our behavior is that kind of takes us down the wrong path. You know, that's the hard part. You know, and this work isn't always fun. Don't get me wrong; it has its moments. I've had some failures. I've had some epic failures. I had an amazing client who I call it a social experiment gone horribly awry. I actually went as far as to move in with the client and help him to pay his rent because he was getting ready to lose everything, and he was desperate about going into recovery, and unfortunately it didn't work out. And you know, that one hurts. I mean, how does it affect you emotionally when you have that? Do you have I know you have a pretty close relationship with all of your clients. I noticed that.
Yeah, you meet somebody and you live with them for a year, you work with them, I mean, you see them every day, and then when they fail, it's hard. When they die, it's even harder.
Right.
But when what makes it all worth it is we just had a young lady come in who lost her kids to the foster care system, and she was told she would not get them back. She moved out last Sunday with her children.
Awesome.
So, you know,
Big win.
you can take lots of failures if you get some, you know, successes, but it's hard.
Yeah.
You know, you lose a lot of sleep, you cry a lot, you laugh a lot, and you just have to do, one of our residents, Mark, he's been with us for 5 years. He's actually our overseer. When he came in, he said, I don't understand the faith thing initially, he does now, but he said, I'm just going to do the next right thing. I'm going to work on morality. I'm just going to keep doing what's right, and hopefully if I do enough right things, things will change.
Yeah.
And he did, and we actually have hoodies we sell down at the thrift store that say do the next right thing, and
I've seen those.
so
I didn't know what
he kind
that
of started
message was.
that,
That's a great
and
story.
but when you see those kind of successes, and you know, I mean, 74% of the people who have gone the year are sober today.
Wow.
So we have a good success rate. The ones that don't make it, you know, you pray for them, you think about them, and hope that they will come back again. You know,
Yeah.
even people that I've asked to leave, they still write me from jail, or they write me from prison. I still go visit them at county jail.
Right.
So even the people that didn't work out for, we still communicate with, and hopefully they'll come back
Nice.
and give it another shot.
Yeah. Well, at the end here, we'll give out some contact information. If anybody wants to contact you, they can go through a link that we have on Wave Street Live and Humble Beginnings in Medicine Wheels. You know, we're pretty much almost out of time already. An hour gone by just like that.
I
We
know.
talked about, oh my God,
It was
gonna
gonna
work.
go by fast.
Yeah, and it did. So I'm
What are
going
you
to
gonna
touch on a
talk
couple
about?
of things real quick. Well, just, you know, yeah, we are, in the middle of something really crazy important, and that is a project that Aaron's going to be launching called Cups of Kindness. And 2 weeks ago, I did a show on Resistance TV, and we talked about the women's homeless community and some of the problems and some of the things that women have that are unique to them, as opposed to the men's population of homeless. And it came down to the fact that, you know, feminine hygiene products, you know, they didn't have that resource. Because, you know, you go to make a donation, you're going to take clothes and
Yeah,
shoes
exactly,
and what have you, but you wouldn't think about that. So I told Erin, you know, we talked about it a little bit. She goes, well, what about this amazing new device called a menstrual cup? And I'm like, I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what it was. And so Erin is actually going to be starting a Kickstarter campaign, and it's called Cups of Kindness, and it is going to be a way to get these resources out there, these, you know, amazing devices that'll save a lot of mental anguish, you know, because a homeless person, you know, if you're a female and you're in that position, man, you're doing whatever you have to get through that. So
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that on the upcoming shows and stuff, and there'll be a link to Cups of Kindness on Novel Beginnings and Medicine Will's Facebook page. Rev, obviously you've been sitting here just kind of quiet as a church mouse, but observing everything, I'm sure, and I want to let everyone know why the Reverend's here. And, you know, we met on a bus a couple of months ago, maybe, riding out to
We were so
Carmel.
quiet. You know,
What's
you
that?
don't say a lot. You don't fill the airtime.
Yeah, no, I don't
Sitting
see
here
you kidding me. Yeah, but
But I'm extremely flattered to be here, and I really appreciate your kindness. And to keep in context with what we were talking about, I met Turtle. Basically, I didn't meet him. He was on the 24 bus, and he was talking about how his program gave away bicycles to people that needed transportation. And I just shut up. I thought that was a wonderful thing for him to do. And he actually had found a stolen bicycle because evidently he's got a secret inscription underneath him. And I thought that was interesting too, that bicycle would have been returned to the person who had it. And I asked him if I could say a prayer for him, and he said yes. So if you don't mind, I'd like to say that prayer again for you
that's
and
why
for
you're here. We're
you
gonna
and for
close
you
the
and for
show.
all the audience here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I can,
So
if I
come
can-
over
if I
and
can
we're
do
gonna
that.
say a quick little prayer, and then we're gonna get out of here because we are right there, almost out of
so
time.
let's
Sure.
join it up. If you don't, if you
And
don't-
again,
if you-
I
if you
just
don't
want to
mind.
clarify real quick, you know, as a Native American spiritual belief system, you know, the one thing I want is that we have an understanding that we're not a faith-based of any particular type. We're all just human beings who just have to have a spiritual connection. So Rev, close us out.
But faith is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have faith,
Yep.
and we do have love, and we do have kindness, and we do have generosity, and we do have the feeling of hope. And without that, we're nothing. So without any further ado, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warmly on your face and the rains fall softly on your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hands. May you ride in the shadow of Lady Luck's wings. May everyone you meet be blessed because they met you, and may you be blessed because you've met them. May you live a life of virtue so that you may achieve felicity in this life and the next. And may all good things happen to you, I pray, my humble, unworthy, and imperfect prayer. Amen.
Oh, Matai, yes. Good job. Thank you so much. And folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Little Victories. Please join us next week on Friday at 11 a.m. right here on Wave Street Live. You can catch this episode also on AMP. We are going to be on the Local Access Monterey Peninsula channel in the upcoming few weeks. We don't have a time slot yet, unfortunately. Aaron, thanks for, helping out, and we're gonna quiet you down next week, but that's okay. And that's it. Have a great day, guys.